perfect spirit soul without material variety. For the benefit of the conditioned soul, he nevertheless accepts different types of sacrifice, performed with various material elements, rituals, and mantras, and offered to the demigods under different names according to interests and purposes of the performers. So Krishna accepts our offering for our own benefit. Prahlad Maharaj says that the Lord does not need anything, but when the reflection is decorated, when the face is decorated and the reflection is also decorated, means Krishna is the face and we are the reflection. So if Krishna is offered something, it is for the benefit of the conditioned soul. For material prosperity, there are recommendations in Vedas for various types of yagna, sacrifice. In Bhagavad Gita 3.10, it is confirmed that Lord Brahma created all living entities, including human beings and demigods, and advised them to perform yagna according to their material desires. Saha yagnaha praja srishtva. These performances are called yagnas because their ultimate goal is to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu. The purpose of performing yagnas is to get material benefit, but because the aim is to simultaneously satisfy the Supreme Lord, such yagnas have been recommended in the Vedas. So they say in Karma Kanda yagnas also Vishnu is first invoked and so indirectly also Krishna is worshipped. Such performances are of course known as Karma Kanda or material activities, and all material activities are certainly contaminated by the three modes of material nature. Generally, the Karma Kanda, ritualistic ceremonies, are performed in the mode of passion. Yet the conditioned souls, both human beings and demigods, are obliged to perform these yagnas because without them, one cannot be happy at all. Why they cannot be happy? They can be happy without yagnas if they are Krishna conscious, but because they are conditioned souls, they want so many things for enjoyment. So that is why it is recommended to perform these yagnas. Anyway, without Krishna consciousness, nobody can be happy. That's the conclusion that is there. Even Vedavyas himself was not happy. After compiling all the Vedas and everything, he was not happy. He was not satisfied. Why? Because he had not described the glories of devotional service, pure devotion to the Supreme Lord. So no matter how much we get materially, material sense gratification, it cannot satisfy the soul. We will always keep hankering for more. As Vaman Dev tells Bali Maharaj, that for a person whose senses are uncontrolled, then even if he gets everything that is there in the three worlds, it will not satisfy him. So, because the soul needs Krishna. So, of course, but because we have bodily demands and things like that, so there are certain ways one can satisfy the desires for sense gratification and ultimately become detached. So, from the desires for sense gratification by coming to a higher platform, by connecting with Krishna. But immediately it is not possible. So, for the conditioned soul, so they are given some concession to satisfy their desires for sense gratification, and then slowly and gradually become detached from those desires because they get higher taste in Krishna consciousness. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that this Karma Kanda, ritualistic ceremonies, although contaminated, contain touches of devotional service. Because whenever there is a performance of any yagna, Lord Vishnu is given a central position. So it is mixed devotional service Because some touch of Vishnu is there in that yagna. Vishnu is some given central position in any. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, yes, this is very important because even a little endeavor to please Lord Vishnu is bhakti and is of great value. So even it is not pure, but there is some endeavor. So it has value. A tinge of bhakti purifies the material nature of the performances, which by devotional service gradually come to the transcendental position. Therefore, although such yagnas are superficially material activities, the results are transcendental. Such yagnas as Surya Yagna, but we don't have to perform these yagnas because Prabhupada gave us the chanting of Hare Krishna mantra, which is the ultimate yagna. Such yagnas are Surya Yagna, Indra Yagna, and Chandra Yagna are performed in the names of the demigods. But these demigods are bodily parts of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods cannot accept sacrificial offerings for themselves, but they can accept them for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Just as a departmental tax collector of a government cannot collect taxes for his personal account but can realize them for the government. Any yagna performed with this complete knowledge and understanding is described in Bhagavad Gita as Brahma Arpanam. So the demigods are supposed to offer it to their higher ups and ultimately to Krishna. So like that. Just as taxes that are collected by any person ultimately has to go to the government. So Krishna says that they are worshipping me but in an indirect way. Avidhi Purvakam. He says, right, what is that verse in the Bhagavad Gita? Krishna says those who are worshippers of the demigods, they indirectly worship me but in a wrong way.
ये अपे अन्य देवता भक्ता ये जनते श्रद्धान्विता तेपे मामेव कौन्ते जनते अविधि पूर्वक.
Yes.
923.
Ye piya anya devata bhakta. So Krishna is saying those who worship the other anya devata, not him. Let's see here. Yavan. Ye pyanya devata bhakta yajante shraddhayanvitaha. They worship with shraddha. Tepi mam eva kaunteya yajanti avidhi purvakam. Those who are devotees of other gods and who worship them with faith actually worship only me, O son of Kunti, but they do so in a wrong way. So that is because if somebody may say, well, we are actually worshipping some demigod, but we are worshipping Krishna. So what is wrong? So then Krishna is saying, no, but they are doing in a wrong way. So instead of pouring water on the root of the tree, they are pouring water on the leaves and the branches. So like that. Just like when you take food, then you have to take food through the mouth. You don't take food through anything else. So there's a nice video about chanting yesterday. I pasted how chanting means. Let me paste. This is 5-10 minutes video from Bhakti Charu Maharaj. Offensive chanting. So offensive chanting is not real chanting. Of course, all chanting has benefit. But here it is. Let's hear this little bit. You may like it, you may not like it, but here something.
When we are chanting, what is the natural requirement? When you are eating, what is the natural requirement? You put the food in your mouth, right? You can't put food in your ears and say, I'm eating. You have to put it in your mouth because food should go to the mouth. That is the way to receive food. Mouth is the way to receive the food. And then the rest happens. It naturally goes to the stomach. And the stomach does the rest. Digests it and takes care of the food. So just as mouth is the medium through which food is received, what is the medium through which sound is received? Hearing. What is this Mahamantra? Transcendental sound vibration. So how this sound vibration should be received? Through hearing. It has to be received by hearing, through our ears. How do the senses receive the objects of the sense? Okay, I'll give you an example. Eyes, what do the eyes receive? Form. Objects of the eyes are form. Now say you are standing in front of somebody and your mind is somewhere else. Will you see him? So what is important? That your mind should be tuned into that sense. Then only you will be able to perceive through the sense. Now our hearing, sound is there, our ears are there. But how do we receive the sound? Through our ears, all right, through hearing, but what should be behind our hearing? The mind. Therefore, Haridas Thakur pointed out that one of the most important aspects of chanting is attentive chanting. In our 10 offenses, this attentive chanting is not included. Why? Because it's taken for granted. When these 10 offenses were prescribed or pointed out, they were serious people. So for them it was taken for granted that they would chant attentively. So that's why it was not included, but Prabhupada included it. What comes after 10th offense? It's also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. It's not only an offense, it's the worst offense actually. So when you are chanting, one of the most important considerations should be hearing. And mind should be there. How do you hear? When the mind is there, then only you hear. If the mind is somewhere else, do you hear? You don't hear. So hearing with attention, attentive chanting is one of the most important considerations. Or not only one of them, the most important consideration. So mind you, this attentive chanting is the most important consideration. Then comes the 10 offenses. So don't commit those offenses. How many of you remember 10 offenses? Okay, those who do not remember, please memorize them. It's very important that we guard ourselves against these offenses, because then the holy name will not become manifest. But Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur pointed out that offensive chanting is not merely chanting. It is committing offenses, not chanting. Not even offensive chanting. Committing offenses. You're committing offenses to the holy name. So one should be very, very careful about these two things. Attentive chanting and offenseless chanting. Then what will happen? This name is Krishna himself. Like as we said, we have wonderful opportunity to address the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How dare we do that? Because He said you can do that. That's why we dare to do that. Just as I gave you the example, Jacob Zuma. You can't just call him, "Hey Jacob, how are you?" Say that you can address me by my name. We dare to address him by his name. And then everything is there in this name, holy name. Everything is there in the holy name. And Mahaprabhu himself said, "Iha hoite sarva siddhi hoibe tomar." Through chanting of this holy name, you will achieve all perfection.
Okay. All right. So, since no one but the Supreme Lord can enjoy the results of sacrifice, the Lord says that He is the actual enjoyer of all sacrifices. Bhoktaram Yagnatapasam Sarvaloko Maheshwaram. Sacrifices should be performed with this view in mind. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Arpanam Brahma Havir, Brahmagno Brahmanahut, Brahmeva Tena Gantavyam, Brahma Karma Samadhi. A person who is fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of his full contribution to spiritual activities, in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. So everything is Krishnaized. So when it is connected with Krishna, then like a wire, as soon as the current flows, it becomes electrified. Prabhupada gave the example that, if there is an iron rod and you put it in the fire, then it acts like fire. So similarly, anything that is connected with Krishna, uh, our assets and everything, it all becomes like spiritualized. So it all has importance. Like we give the example that it's all zero, but if you put the one before, means if everything is used, Sankirtan means complete glorification also. Sankirtan means to come together to glorify the Lord, but it also means to use everything to glorify the Lord. So whether you have your computer, you have your car, you have your house, everything, your body, everything should be used. So that is also Sankirtan. So everything becomes then spiritualized. The performer of sacrifices, so nothing is, rejected. Everything is, if it is connected with Krishna's service, that's Yukta Vairagya. Prabhupada used the term dovetail. Dovetail means you use everything in the service of the Lord. Money is also used, one's energy, one's time, and everything. So then the consummation is absolute, and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. The performer of sacrifices must always keep in view that sacrifices mentioned in the Vedas are meant to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vishnur Aradyate Pantha. Anything material or spiritual done for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord is understood to be an actual yajna. And by performing such yajnas, one gets liberation from material bondage. The direct method of getting liberation from material bondage is devotional service, comprising the 9 following methods: Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu, Smaranam Padasevanam, Archanam Vandanam Dasyam, Sakhyam Atma Nivedanam. This ninefold process is described in this verse as Vishuddha Vijnana Ganaha, or satisfying the Supreme Personality of God directly by transcendental knowledge, concentrated on the form of the Supreme Lord Vishnu. So, of the 9 processes, Tar Madhya Sarva Sresht, Tar Madhya Sarva Sresht.
हरि नाम संकीर्तन निरपराध नाम ले पाया प्रेम धन.
So, we should, It's so easy to satisfy Krishna. As Maharaj was saying, you chant and you hear, because the sound vibration has to be received through here. Sound, just as form is received through the eyes, food is received through the mouth, the Krishna in the form of sound vibration is received through the ear, but you can only hear if your mind is there. Sometimes some people say something, but if your mind is not there, if your mind is thinking something else, then, or distracted, then you're not hearing, right? You said, can you please repeat what you said? Because mind is not there. Although we heard some sound was coming, but the mind was not there. So Maharaj was saying that we should have two things. We should receive the sound through ears and also apply our mind. Means pay attention to that. So I was trying to, chant like that this morning, and it was helping to hear the Krishna's name like that. So, and we can remember Krishna's form, the deity, like that. This is the best method for satisfying the Supreme Lord. One who cannot take to this direct process, however, should take the indirect process of performing yagnas for the satisfaction of Vishnu or yagna. Vishnu is therefore called Yagnapati, Shriyapatim, Yagnapatim, Jagatpatim. So Krishna says, you directly think of me always in spontaneous love. If that's not possible, then you work for me. You follow the principles of Bhakti Yoga. If you can't do that, then you work for me. So then ultimately we'll attain perfection. The Supreme Personality of God's deep scientific knowledge is concentrated to the supreme point. Krishna is the ultimate scientist. Prabhupada said he knows how to float planets in space, and he can float like when they were building the bridge, then stones were floating on water. He knows the science of how to make something weightless, and so many planets with their, how much earth weighs, or so much, but it is floating like a swab of cotton in the air, right? And if you think about it, how this whole planet, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying, I am the one who holds the planets in their orbits. So there is a verse like that, I forget the Sanskrit. He's the one who holds the planets in the orbits. For example, medical science knows some things superficially, but doctors do not know exactly how things happen in the body. Yeah, how so many diseases, they don't understand how it is happening. They can't find the cure. So sometimes you go through all the tests and they cannot tell you what is wrong. It happened recently with some person. He went to the hospital in the emergency. They put him through all the tests, CT scan, this, that, and afterwards they cannot find what is wrong. And the person is still having the symptoms. So, like that, it's very superficial. We don't know completely what's going on. Of course, many things they find out also, but body is so complex, and little bit here and there causes lot of havoc in our life. So we are living in this body which can fall apart, right? Or anything can go wrong in this body. Out of so many organs, any organ can decide, okay, I will not function, or some cancer starts developing. So our life is like that, tottering like a drop of water on the lotus petal. Means we are dependent on this body. And this body is a source of various diseases, as Prahlad Maharaj says. Kutrash,
कुत्रचित् श्रुतिशुभमृतश्रुतश्रुतिरूपा क्वेदं कलेवरम् आशीर्षुजमिरो निर्विद्यते न तु जानो यत् अपति विद्वान् कामलं मधुलवेश्यमिन्दुरापहि.
nice, Kutrash. Yeah. So he says, where is the happiness in the material world? Kutra, Shisha, Shruti, Shuka. It is nice to hear that in future I will get happiness. When this will happen, that event will happen in my life. When I get married, there'll be happiness. Then when I'll get children, I'll be happy. Then when my children will get married, then I'll be happy. Then when I'll get a promotion in my job, then I will do this. When I retire, I will be happy. So it is always some future. Prahlad Maharaj is saying that Kutra, Shisha, Shruti, Shuka, Mrigatrishni. It's like a mirage in the desert, and everybody's running after this mirage. But Kutra, Shisha, Shruti, Shuka, Mrigatrishni. Kvedam, Kalevaram. Kalevaram is this body. A body is a source of various diseases. Ashesha Rujam. Unlimited diseases are there. So everybody knows this. But because the fire of lust, kama, nalam, and there is some little drops of pleasure, madhulavai, some drops of pleasure, so that we are running after this. Our whole life, we are trying to find some drops of pleasure, of happiness. So that is, and it never satisfies the soul. So this is what the situation is in this material world. So we should find happiness in devotional service. Then we'll be peaceful. Otherwise, material desires simply agitate the mind, and it makes us very disturbed and anxious. So, but devotional service, because it is not dependent on any material situation, one can please the Lord in any situation. Whereas material desires, to fulfill material desires, you have to work very, very hard, and so many things have to go right to fulfill material desires. And those things are beyond our control. So, when we embark on the project of fulfilling material desires, so many things can go wrong. First of all, our body can go wrong. So, then where is the question of material happiness? If I get a disease in my body, then no material happiness can be derived, right? So this is how it's the situation is. So Lord Krishna, however, knows everything in detail. Therefore, his knowledge is Vijnana Ghana. Ghana means concentrated. Because he knows everything, one should meditate on the Supreme Lord as one who knows everything. Krishna is saying in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, one should meditate upon me as
Me.
one. Huh? Yes, Janish would like to say something.
No, Prabhuji, I was on a call and I just ended, so I was unmuted automatically.
Oh, okay. Therefore, his knowledge is Vijnana Ghana, because it does not have any defects of material science. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Vishuddha Vijnana Ghana, concentrated transcendental knowledge. Therefore, even though he accepts karma kandiya, materialistic yagnas, he always remains in a transcendental position. Therefore, the mention of Aneka Guna refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's many transcendental. Anek means various. He has many different kinds of qualities. For he is not affected by the material qualities. The different kinds of material paraphernalia or physical elements are also gradually transformed into spiritual understanding, because ultimately there is no difference between material and spiritual qualities, for everything emanates from the Supreme Spirit. So nothing is material in one sense, because everything is coming from Krishna, but still Krishna says, right? But if you use it in Krishna's service, then it is spiritual, because it is connected with the Spirit, Supreme Spirit. This is realized by a gradual process of realization, purification. One vivid example of this is Dhruva Maharaj, who took to meditation in the forest to achieve material benefit, but ultimately became spiritually advanced and did not want any benediction for material profit. He was simply satisfied with the association of the Supreme Lord. So, having attained Krishna consciousness, one thinks there is no greater gain. Manyate nadhikam tataha yam labdva chaparam labham manyata. Manyate nadhikam tataha. And one is not disturbed even in the midst of.
दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचल्यते.
What what is that? Yasmin?
यं लब्ध्वा च परं लाभं मन्यते नाधिकं तथा यस्मिन् स्थितो न दुःखेन गुरुणापि विचल्यते.
Yasmin sthito na dukkhena. Guru na picture. Okay. Ashaya means determination. Generally, a conditioned soul has the determination for material profit. Asha also means hope. Asha means hope for material profit. But when these desires for material profit are satisfied through the performance of yajna, one gradually achieves the spiritual platform. Then his life becomes perfect. So he feels, okay, I got so much. He feels grateful to Krishna, and then maybe. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.3.10 therefore recommends Akama sarva kamo va moksha kama udarati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. Everyone, whether akama, sarvakama, or mokshakama, is encouraged to worship the Supreme Personality of God by the direct method of devotional service. In this way, one can get both material and spiritual profit simultaneously. Material profit means, like, yeah, we have some desires for enjoyment, so Krishna can give that. But it is not the path that is recommended generally. But even if you have desires, it says you worship Krishna with great intensity to fulfill those material desires, then Krishna somehow will remove those material desires. Or he will fulfill your material desires, and then you will feel very grateful to the Lord. And then you will become more devoted to the Lord. Or he will remove the material desires. Or he will make you frustrated. Right? Sometimes Krishna says, oh, yeah, he is asking for poison. Why should I give him poison? Instead, I'll give him nectar. Of course, he'll not become frustrated if he gets nectar. When he gets higher taste of bhakti, then he will not become frustrated. As Dhruva Maharaj got higher taste of bhakti, then he was saying that Swamin Kirthartho Asmi Varam Nayache. I don't want anything else. I'm satisfied. So, on the contrary, even if we have everything, if we are in the heart, we are not satisfied, then there will be no peace. So whatever we have, we should engage in Krishna's service. Anyway, everything is going to be taken away at some point. Our body is going to be taken away. Our money, when body is taken away, money, everything is taken away. So we should use whatever we have in Krishna. Then we can get spiritual credit. Otherwise, we will leave everything behind and go without any spiritual credit. Body will be left behind. But if body you used in Krishna's service, then it was. So we have our tongue. This tongue should be used to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. As Amrish Maharaj, right? How he used, yesterday we were reading how he used all of his body's senses and bodily parts, Karmendriya and Gyanendriyas, to in the Lord's service. That is perfect. His legs in walking to the holy places, his head in bowing down before the Lord. Or with our head we can understand Shastra, apply our intelligence. What is that verse? One should apply one's intelligence to the philosophy. Yeah, hoite.
कृष्ण लागे सुदृढ़ मानस इहा होते
Yeah, hoite.
सिद्धांत बोलिया चित्ते ना करालस इहा होते कृष्ण लागे सुदृढ़ मानस.
Yeah, hoite lage. Yeah, yeah, hoite. What is that? Yeah, hoite.
कृष्ण लागे सुदृढ़ मानस.
Yeah, hoite. Krishna lage sudrida manas. So we should use our mind and our brain, all this, to understand spiritual things, how we can become Krishna con. We can realize our true identity as servant of Krishna. We should use our intelligence. That is why we have been given higher intelligence than animals, so that we can understand spiritual subject matter. And then Prabhupada says we should tax our brains on how to give Krishna to others. Prabhupada was always thinking about how we can give this Krishna consciousness to others. So planning, what ways I can give Krishna to others, because everybody may not be ready. So devotees sometimes give analogies and they come up with so many different to convince us so that we can take up Krishna consciousness. They use their brain to convince. Okay, what's the time? We'll read one verse. Only one verse we read. Okay. Pradhana kalashaya dharma sangrahe sharira esha pratipadya chetanam kriyafalattvena vipurvibhavyate yathanalo darushu tadgunatmakaha. Okay. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is all pervading, but he is also manifested in different types of bodies which arise from a combination of material nature. So he is all pervading everywhere, but he is manifested also in different types of bodies which arise from a combination of material nature, time, desires, and occupational duties. Thus, different types of consciousness develop just as fire, which is always basically the same, blazes in different ways according to the shape and dimension of firewood. Okay, so we have different shapes of bodies. We have cat body, we have dog body, we have elephant body. There are different shapes of the bodies, right? Depending on the desires of the living entity, his karma and everything else. He has got different types of bodies. And in this way, according to the body we have a certain kind of consciousness. So just as fire has different shapes, in different ways it burns, sometimes it burns with this form, sometimes it burns with that form. That's what Prabhupada is saying here, or Bhagavatam is saying. The Supreme Personality of God constantly lives with the individual soul as Paramatma. So Krishna is in our heart. The individual soul has awareness in accord with his material body. And Paramatma is always, what is the three characteristics of Paramatma? He is ever what? Ever,
willing, ever working, no? Upadrishthanumanta,
ever willing, ever working, and
ever waiting.
waiting. So he is there in our heart. Krishna is there in our heart, waiting for us to turn to him. The example is given of the two birds in the tree. One bird is eating the fruits of the tree and is very engrossed. And the other bird, who is his friend, is looking at this other bird, thinking that when will he stop eating those fruits and turn to me? So we are very absorbed in fruitive activities, in trying to enjoy in this material world. And that those desires have made us so engrossed in these activities that we have forgotten that my real friend, my eternal companion, Krishna, is next to me. So, and we are like enjoying and suffering the results of this karma in this world. So Krishna is waiting, waiting. Oh, when will he turn to me? When will he turn to me? Like sometimes some friends, you're thinking, when will this friend talk to me? When will this friend? The friend is very busy in so many activities. They don't have time. So, like sometimes we go to book distribution and we say, can we talk to you? He says, no, I'm in a hurry now. I have to know there's a thing. My baby is there in the car. My this is there. So many things they will say. They don't even have time to hear what we have to say. Of course, some people do stop, but most people are in like a rush. So, so we are also in a rush in this material world. So much, morning till evening, very, very busy, busy. We don't have time to hear about Krishna. Of course, devotees do. We read Bhagavatam and all this. So when we read Shastra, we should have enough time. We should read very peacefully, as if we have all the time in the world. There should be no like, rush, so that we can absorb it nicely. It's not about finishing or anything. It's about, even if we understand one verse very nicely, contemplate upon it and realize. But our mind is so distracted by these fruitive activities, and our lifestyle is such that in this Kali Yuga, it tends to keep us very busy, and all the other distractions due to social life, birthdays and marriages and parties and all these things. So we can't even sit down peacefully and just contemplate on this Shastra, Mananam, which is required. The sages, that's why they used to go to forest, very peaceful in the forest, and they will sit under a tree and then they will write. Like Rupa Goswami, he wrote his literature at Ter Kadamba, and very peaceful place. And he would. So, the individual soul has awareness in accord with this material body, which he attains by virtue of Prakriti or material nature. The material ingredients are activated by force of time, and thus the three material modes of nature are manifested. So the Pradhan, and that with Krishna's glance in the form of time, which is Shambhu, the whole material nature is activated and material modes are there. According to his association with the three modes of nature, the living entity develops a particular type of body. In animal life, the material mode of ignorance is so prominent that there is very little chance of realizing the Paramatma, who is also present within the heart of the animal. But in the human form of life, because of developed consciousness, Chetanam, one can be transferred from ignorance and passion to goodness by the results of his activities. Kriya Phalatvena. A human being. So we have the potential to elevate ourselves. And Krishna is saying one should not degrade oneself by the mind, but one should elevate himself by this mind. He should not degrade. A human being is therefore advised to associate with spiritually advanced personalities. The Vedas give the direction, Tad Vijnanartham Sa Gurumeva Abhigachet. In order to reach the perfection of life or to understand the real constitutional position of the living entity, one must approach the spiritual master. Gurum eva abhigachet, one must, it is not optional. So, we should approach those who are very serious about understanding this subject matter, and those who are dedicated to spirituality. And by their influence, and they are pure in heart, and by their words and by their association, we will also become pure. It is imperative that one approach the spiritual master, for by such association one proportionately develops his consciousness. So we are reading this Prabhupada's words, we are associating. Association is through Vani. So this is also the Vani of Prabhupada in his book form. And through that we are associating, and then we have other devotees who are giving classes, and then we are hearing them. So, for by such association, one proportionately develops his consciousness towards the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The highest perfection of such consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. According to the body given by Prakriti or nature, one's consciousness is present. According to the development of consciousness, one's activities are performed. And according to the purity of such activities, one realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is present in everyone's heart. So whatever our consciousness is, that is what we are going to do in our life, right? So we will do our activities based on that. So in material consciousness, our activities are all for sense gratification. So, but in spiritual consciousness, we do chanting, we do hearing, we do devotional service, like that, different. And depending on the consciousness and the purity of the activities. So sometimes we are chanting, but we are not chanting pure way. Means at that time I should do with the understanding that I'm spirit soul, I'm just passing through, I'm servant of Krishna. Instead, all other desires are coming in the mind. So it is so according to the purity of such activities, means the consciousness in which you perform those activities, one realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is present in everyone's heart. The example given herein is very appropriate. Fire is always the same, but according to the size of fuel or burning wood, the fire appears to be straight, curved, small, big, etc. So two people may be doing the same activity, but the spiritual advancement can be different because it is the consciousness in which you are doing that activity matters. According to the development of consciousness, God realization is present. So how much we are developed in consciousness. In the human form of life, it is recommended, therefore, that one undergo the different types of penances and austerities described in Bhagavad Gita. Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and Bhakti Yoga. Like a staircase, yoga has different steps for reaching the topmost floor, and according to one's position upon the staircase, is understood to be situated in Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, or Bhakti Yoga. That's why I say it's yoga ladder. In ladder, there are many steps. And of course, Bhakti Yoga is the topmost step on the staircase of realization of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, according to one's development in consciousness, one realizes his spiritual identity. And thus, when one's existential position is purified fully, he becomes situated in Brahmananda, which is ultimately unlimited. Therefore, the Sankirtan movement. So we should always remember, and ultimately we have to realize that I'm a spirit soul. I'm passing through this body for a few years. Like we show this changing body exhibits when we go on book distribution, we say, where are you? And then the person will say, I'm here. I'm this adult or I'm whatever. And then we say, oh, you are just passing through this body. So this life is just, we are just passing through. We are in transit to our next destination. So whatever we do now is going to determine our next destination. So we are in transit. There is for a few years. Sometimes you are in transit for a few hours at some airport before you take another plane to your destination. So similarly, we are in our transit in this body. So if we remember like this, that it is just a temporary situation. I'm in transit. So let me do what I am supposed to do. Then so many things will fall in place. Therefore, Sankirtan movement contributed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead as Lord Chaitanya is the direct and easiest process for coming to the purest form of Krishna consciousness, the platform on which the Supreme Personality is fully realized. And as I'm in transit, everybody else is in transit also. So nothing is going to last here. And anytime the rug can be pulled from under our feet. So we just use everything in Krishna's service, knowing that I cannot take anything with me. Directions for performing different types of yagnas are specifically arranged for the highest realization of the Supreme Lord, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita by the Lord Himself. Yathamam prapadyante tanstatheva bhajamiham. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is realized according to the proportion of one's surrender. Krishna will reveal based on how much we want to know Him. Full surrender, however, occurs when a man is perfectly in knowledge. Bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate. Okay. So those who are surrendered to us, those who are our well-wishers, we tell them everything about our life and everything. So similarly, those who love Krishna, those who love us, we tell them everything about our life, our problems and everything. We can confide in them. So similarly, when we love Krishna, then Krishna reveals Himself about Him to us more and more. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yashashmi tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatva vishati tadanantaram bhaktya svananya shakya aham evam vido Arjuna. Bhaktya svananya shakya aham. What is the next line? Bhaktya svananya shakya Gyatum drashtum.
Vishnu Chapara.
What is the second line? Bhaktya Swananyasha.
Akratan Am Eva Vidu Arjuna.
Evam Vidorja. Okay, so it is possible, Krishna is saying, to know me by Ananya Bhakti. Okay, fully. Of course, fully we cannot know because Krishna is unlimited. Okay, so anything you would like to share? Say on a song or okay, so we will. Hmm.
I can sing some. Ah, okay. Paste.
A nice tune.
Okay. भूलिया तुम्हारे ये संसारी आशिया पे नाना विधा व्यथा তোমরা চরণে আসিয়াছে আমি বলব দুঃখেরা কথা জননী জঠারে ছিলাম ঝকোনা বিষম বন্ধন পাশে एक बार प्रभु देखा दिया मोरे वांछिले दिन दासे तखना भाविनु जन्म पाइया करिब भजन तावा जन्म हयेलो पदी माया जाले ना हयेलो ज्ञान लवा आदरेरा ছিলে স্বজনেরা কোলে হাসিয়া কাটানো কালা জনক জননী স্নেহেতে ভুলিয়া সংসার লাগিল ভালো ক্রমে দিনে দিনে বালক হইয়া ভোলেনু বালক সাহা আর কিছু দিনে জ্ঞান পছিল पाठा पढ़िया हारा विद्यारा गौरवे भ्रमि देशे देशे धनु पर जन कोरी स्वजन पालना करिए कमाने भूली न तुम्हारे हरि बाधिके खोना भक्ति विनोदा कांडिया कातर अति न भजिया तोरे दीना बृथ गेलो एखने की हबे गति. Translation. I forsook you, O Lord, and I came to this world of pain and sorrow. Now I submit my tale of woe at your lotus feet. While still in the unbearable fetters of my mother's womb, I saw you before me. You revealed yourself but briefly and then abandoned this poor servant of yours. At that moment, I swore to worship you after taking birth, but birth came and with it the network of worldly illusion which robbed me of all good sense. As a fondled son in the lap of relatives, I passed my time smiling and laughing. My parents' affection helped me to forget the pangs of birth, and I thought this world was very nice. Day by day I grew and soon began playing with the other boys. Shortly my powers of understanding emerged. I read and studied my lessons incessantly. Traveling from place to place, proud of my education, I grew wealthy and maintained my family with undivided attention. O Lord Hari, I forgot you. Now in old age, Bhaktivinoda is sad, he weeps. I failed to worship you, O Lord, and instead passed my life in vain. What will be my fate now? So, we have forgotten the Lord. Krishna bhuliya jeev bhoga vancha kade. Tare pashate maya tare japatiya dhare. Forgetting the Lord and trying to enjoy separately from Him, Maya captures us and gives us so much trouble. So we have come to this world of pain and sorrow, and Krishna has hidden himself because we don't want to see him. But Krishna is there as Paramatma in the heart. He never left us. He came along with us and he reminds us that he is present. Mm. And so, in the womb of the mother, where we were experiencing so much difficulty, um, we were crying out in pain, and Krishna came, and we saw him, and we promised to him that I will not. Once I get out, I will become your devotee, and I will not enter into another mother's womb. But Maya is so strong, Devi Esha Gurmai Mama Maya Duratya, that as soon as we come out, we're surrounded by our family and friends, and they're taking care of us. We are the center of attraction, and we forget the pangs of birth, and we think that the world is very nice. And बालस्तावत् क्रीडाशक्ता तरुणेस्तावत् तरुणीरक्ता वृद्धास्तावत् चिन्तामग्ना parame brahmani kopi na lagna. The childhood passes away in playing, the youth passes away in being attracted to the opposite gender, and old age passes away in anxiety of so many things. So just life passes and we don't get time to think, remember Krishna and remember the promise that we had made to him. And we're traveling from place to place, collecting wealth, maintaining our family with undivided attention. In midst of all of this, we forget Krishna who loves us the most. So now Bhaktivinoda Thakur is saying that old age is there and I'm very sad. I have passed my life wasting time, not remembering you. Now what will happen to me after death? What is my fate? What will be my fate now? You want to add something, Prabhu?
No, I think we said everything. Yeah. Yeah, that is also like that, right? Another song. Every song, like so many songs. The Vidyara Vilase also. That song by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, right? That is also
Mm.
like that.
Mm.
How I became proud and all this, and we
Yeah.
forgot.
So if we don't give priority to Krishna, then life can pass with other things.
Hmm.
And Kritu Maharaj was saying that reading Bhagavad Gita takes like maybe finishing it for 5 hours, but some people don't even dedicate that much amount of time for their whole life.
Hmm. Yeah. But generally, you have to read it little slow, right? To understand the Bhagavad.
Yeah, it's not just about reading, but in applying. But there are people, as we see them in Patel Brothers, right? They don't even have time to
Hmm.
stop and
Yeah.
take the book.
Yeah. Correct. Because there are other very pressing priorities in life. The priority in life is not that I I have to connect to Krishna or I have to get out of this cycle of birth and death. I'm in a very difficult situation. That is not the priority in life. So based on our priorities, that's the greatest obstacle, right, to spiritual advancement. Is to think that something else is more important in life than connecting with Krishna. So that's how our priorities are wrong, and we have so many duties. We think this duty is very important, that duty is very important, and then and so many desires for enjoyment. So and so many things to enjoy in this world. So this is not a priority. So that's how, for us, we are distracted by this so many other things. That's why we are not Vyavasaitmika Buddhi. I mean, not talking about myself, not everybody else. So that's how we have to become Vyavasaitmika Buddhi. That I got this life only for one purpose, is to get out of this cycle of birth and death, not to create a nice situation, temporary situation here in this material world and become like, like engrossed in it. So Of course, we can have a nice situation, but a Krishna conscious situation, right? That's the nice situation. So, and the right, it is to work. I mean, it gives so many anxiety, like layoffs, and this job goes, and so many things happen. So naturally, in that kind of situation, your mind is not going to be peaceful. Then you have to look for a job. Then you have to see which technology I have to study now, so that I can make my resume better and I can get job and all this. So like that, it's also very anxiety filled situation. So much and unemployment is there and all this. But if you take shelter of Krishna, even amidst all this kind of situation, then will not feel the anxiety. Okay. So those of us who have a nice situation, materially speaking, then we should use our time to, and of course we have to do our job so that we don't lose our jobs also. But we have to do so that Krishna has given this nice situation so that I can give some time every day, 2-3 hours at least, to chanting, and maybe 1 hour for reading scriptures or more. And now we have so many calls, right? You can't join in the morning. There is an evening call also to read and understand. So, and so many other programs. So we cannot go to all the programs, but some at least we can go. Okay, that's what is.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Ah,
So prioritizing Krishna. So for general person who is not on the bhakti path,
ah,
so when he or she prioritize God in the life, probably because of the distress in the current life,
yes.
but the next stage is not just distress limited to current life, but as you said, beyond this life, I want to get out of the repeated birth death cycle. Now, so this is a different level of knowledge.
Mm,
So unless one has that knowledge, and that knowledge it come from the various sources, books or devotees, guru, acharya.
mm,
So unless one come to that level of stage, they may not be able to prioritize Krishna. I mean, at least the common man, he can only prioritize God only on a need basis. When there is a distress, go to mandir or temple or whatever, right? So that prioritization stage comes only when there is a knowledge or whatever we can say mercy of devotee.
correct. Yeah, that's why reading scriptures is very important, because then only we will get this bigger picture. Otherwise, we will not understand who we are also. We are not this body, we are the soul. I will live beyond, I will live before, I live after. So, this bigger picture you cannot understand without hearing this knowledge and reading the books of Srila Prabhupada, like that, hearing from devotees, as you're saying. So, if you don't hear, then what will happen is our will not even have like any desire for making spiritual advancement. So we have to hear. That's how it changes. Everything changes by hearing. Okay. So if we don't have time to hear, then that we can also see, right, in our life. If we stop hearing and chanting also means hearing. But if you do stop that, then everything falls apart. Then our desire for like God consciousness, everything will become weak and weak. So, okay. Anything else? Okay, we will. So Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. Prabhupada has written all these books. He said not only to distribute but also to read. So you should read all the books. It may sound repetitive also, but Prabhupada's repetition is necessary because even the basic points sometimes it's difficult to get. So then, after repeated hearing, maybe one day by Krishna's mercy, more and more realization will come. Krishna's mercy, we get realization. Okay, so we will read this Bombay, this chapter, this book. Say it well.
Yes, ma'am, I can read.
We are reading
Should I read?
yeah. We are reading Giriraj Maharaj's book, Dancing White Elephants. We are at page. If you have that book, you can follow along, and you can also read if you have that book with us. We can read little one page, two page, everyone. 73, we're on page number 73. If you don't have the book, then you can ask me. I will send you the book from our temple warehouse. A lot of books. And you can give a small donation. Okay.
Okay, ma'am. Bombay, January 4 to 6, 1971. In Surat, Srila Prabhupada had determined that he would go to Allahabad for the Ardha Kumbh Mela, but he wanted to stop in Bombay for a few days en route. 25 devotees went directly from Surat to Allahabad, and a few of us took a train to Bombay. On the way, we met a Surat factory owner named Mr. Kotak, who had a house in Bombay. We explained to him that we had no place to stay, and he invited us to his home at Chowpatty. We were all delighted how wonderful India was, that wherever we went we met such nice people who offered to take care of us. Srila Prabhupada arrived from Surat on the Flying Rene Express on the morning of January 4. Shyam Sundar picked him up and rushed him to lunch at the home of a new life member, Madan Lal Vakaria from Surat, who had a flat on Marine Drive. Mr. Vakaria had a record player, and Shyam Sundar brought George Harrison's latest record album, All Things Must Pass, which George had mailed him for Prabhupada to hear. The Indian technology was a little primitive and the sound quality was poor, but Prabhupada smiled and seemed to relish every word as Shyam Sundar moved the needle to the tracks. Prabhupada had inspired such as Awaiting on You All and Beware of Darkness. Tracks Prabhupada had inspired. Although Prabhupada couldn't understand many of the lyrics, he heard the Hare Krishna Mahamantra chorus in My Sweet Lord and went ooh with his eyebrows raised, smiling radiantly at all the devotees in the room, and then we had nice prasad. So now devotees are going to Bombay, and Shyam Sundar, he has brought George Harrison's records, and Prabhupada inspired him to write these songs. All things must pass. Awaiting on you all. Beware of darkness. And my sweet Lord. And Prabhupada is very much pleased to hear the Hare Krishna mantra. Two pages.
Yeah.
Mr. Kotak's place ended up not working out. So Gurudas, Shamsundar and few of us went to meet Mr. Ramachand Chabaria, who had known to the devotees in England. As soon as we explained our difficulty, that we had no place to stay, he offered to put us up at his Sea Palace Hotel, which was vegetarian and didn't serve alcohol. The Sea Palace was situated in between two Victorian buildings on Strand Road, Apollo Bunder, overlooking the Bombay harbour. The steps at the entrance were black granite, and there were flower boxes on both sides. The small hallway had inlaid marble, and the floor was white and red marble with a small desk. Shyam Sundar, Gurudas, Rishi Kumar, Tushta Krishna, and I were in one suite, and in the other room were Yamuna and Malati. Srila Prabhupada had a suite on the top floor with a sea breeze coming off the ocean. It had a view of the harbor and overlooked a wide boulevard on which he would take his morning walk, passing the gateway to India and the Taj Mahal Hotel. Since the hotel was vegetarian, they had a nice menu, but I was a little apprehensive about eating hotel food. I had faith in Gurudas and Yamuna though, and they seemed to approve, so I was reassured. The evening dinner was always a big event. Sometimes Yamuna would go down to the kitchen, give the cook ideas, supervise them, and sometimes just jump right in and take over the cooking. And she would make sure that the dining room seating was nicely arranged. We would all gather to honor Prasad, and sometimes we'd remain in the dining hall and discuss Srila Prabhupada and Krishna after finishing our meal and over ice cream or one of the hotel's other desserts. To prepare Srila Prabhupada's prasad, Yamuna would shop for ingredients at the fruit and vegetable stalls just down the street. Then I'd go into the kitchen and cut them. She remembered. Now this was a busy vegetarian restaurant kitchen. There was constant activity there. Still, I would boldly go into the kitchen and say that my Guru Maharaj required this preparation made in such and such way. Sometimes I would cook myself. They were typically generous and kind in allowing me to interrupt their schedule in the kitchen, but my focus was on Srila Prabhupada, and I was prepared to make a nuisance of myself if needed for his service. At 6:30 on our second morning, January 5, Srila Prabhupada spoke to a small gathering about managerial problems in the London temple, particularly in regard to book distribution. The devotee strategy was to use advertisements to try to sell Prabhupada's books, and he did not agree with this approach. They are trying to sell by advertising, but you cannot distribute by advertising, he said. That is the wrong policy. These books are managed and sold by propaganda work. Unless one is interested in Krishna, he will not buy. You have to create propaganda interest. Simply, advertisement will get no result. Not for the first time, he expressed a desire for an experienced manager from our group to go to London to help. But we had all just recently arrived in India on the much anticipated tour, and no one wanted to leave Prabhupada's association. So we see that here, devotees have now gone to this hotel, Sea Palace Hotel, which is very nice. So sometimes, devotees are staying in very austere conditions where there are rats on the floor. They're sleeping. Sometimes they're in nicer situations, but to them it's all same. They're doing it for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada.